Welcome back to Be the Trader, everyone. Today I have a very special episode for all of you. A while back, I had my first ever face-to-face interaction with another trader. It was Tim Parker. You got to make sure you're going to watch that. But while I had him there face-to-face, I thought instead of me going back to my office and recording to a webcam and sharing some of the difficulties I'm facing right now with all of you, I thought, why not ask him if he'd be open to at least listen? Because I wanted to at least share it with another person, because I thought maybe I could share more, or I'd use him as a soundboard, which I definitely did, and it helped a lot. So I want to be able to share this with all of you, because I know at some point in your journey, or now, you may be facing something similar. If you get any value from this show, please share it with a friend or colleague. And if you can, hit that like button, because it really does go a long way in helping us grow the show. Enjoy. I started to realize that at my skill level of trading this way, I can't just trade everything I see.
Yeah.
Because I am just not there yet.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone, to Be the Trader. Today I have a very unique episode because this time I brought back Tim Parker once again because we had a conversation not too long ago. I would say a couple of weeks ago when I got back from out of town, and then I had a rough spot. And I thought, you know what, let me give Tim a call because I had him on the show in the past and he knows a lot about trading. He actually helps a lot of traders. So I thought, let me just, vent to him. And then we had a very unique conversation that I think you all will be able to benefit from. And so I wanted to bring him here for us to talk and maybe him ask me some questions about what I went through and what I may be going through now that might be able to help you too, and maybe you can relate. So Tim, welcome back, my man. Thanks for being willing to come back on and just, really talk to me about some of the other things we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that first conversation. That was notable.
Absolutely. And just to put things in perspective, everyone, how it started is I called you. I was at Dick's Sporting Goods, and they don't sponsor this, but just call us. And when I was there, I called you up because I just hit a week of a rough spot. And I explained to you that it was after coming from Paris. Went to Paris for only like 4 days, came back, and I was just gun-ho. And I was like, you know what? I've been consistent, I think, at that time for like a year and almost 2 years, a year and like 8 months. And I was like, I felt good. I was like, you know what? It's time to like really step it up. And then I hit a rough spot, and that's when I called you.
Yeah.
And what happened was I wasn't rough in terms of like, I never like to focus on like profits. I never think about that.
Yeah.
But I did look at it, and I noticed that like I was really just like this. But mentally, I was exhausted and drained. And I remember telling you, I was like, man, I was forcing things. I was taking trades that really weren't the best for me. And there were some things that we talked about, and I don't know if you can help me remember, but we talked about the idea of, if I'm honest, I figured out that I started to fall into my old habit of comparing myself.
Sure.
I would compare myself to other traders.
Yeah.
I'd compare myself to some idol, like not someone in particular, but just like an idol of maybe of what I thought I should be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then when I even dig deeper, it was amazing that I started to see that, like, I was talking to a trader every day, someone who's traded for 30 years. His name's Scott, right? Great guy, phenomenal. He's super nice dude. So there's nothing against him. And it was never like we talked during trading hours. It was always after the close, right? And phenomenal friend. I consider him a friend. And we'd always be like, hey, would you trade today? And what I've always found at that time is I am just in my level of skill and my career of trading. So there's some days where maybe there's not that many great setups for me. Maybe there's only one. Maybe there's two. Maybe there's zero, right? But for him, there was like 10 every day. And at first, that inspired me to try new things, which made me change the way I trade. Because I think I talked to you and also mentioned for that first year of consistency, I only traded one setup and I just traded one way. Yeah. And it was like, and I was okay with only trading one way. And there was a month where I traded 5 trades for the whole month. And I would sit there all day.
Sure.
and look at the market and not even pull the trigger and be okay with that. But I was by myself, didn't talk to anybody for a whole year. And I was like, okay, cool. But then when I discovered these other traders, you could trade all types of ways. At first, it opened my mind up, and I tried new things, and I started to adapt. And I went through like a month or 2 months of just like doing nothing well. Like because I tried new things, right? And then I downsized dramatically, and then I started to find consistency in trading what I like to call is just like, I just trade price action, if you will, like, but with the big picture trend, right? And so when I found that new way, then I started to realize that at my skill level of trading this way, I can't just trade everything I see because I am just not there yet.
Yeah.
And I thought I was okay with that. And then for a moment there, I ended up pulling back a little bit and just trading okay with that and doing good. But then something happened, and I can't make a distinct time of when it happened. I think it's gradual, right? Where I started to see that, like, oh, I didn't see anything great. But then he's like, well, I saw X, Y, Z, and I saw this, and I saw this. And instead of starting to see it as happy, like, good for you, that's amazing, I started to see it with a different perspective of like, what's wrong with me? What's going on here? Or even worse, I would be like, nah, that's not right. What I'm doing right. Or then I'll switch and be like, I'm not doing anything right. He's doing it. I would start to lose myself, right? And no fault to anyone but me. And what's unique about that is during that process, I didn't see it at the time. I did not see it at the time at all. But I started to maybe slack a little bit and trading and tracking every trade, right? Maybe just a little bit at first, right? So it wasn't very noticeable. Maybe I didn't write everything in detail. Maybe I just wrote a little bit. Maybe I just took one picture of one chart and not all the charts. And then it became, I started to just like struggle a little bit, like I started to lose more frequently. And then I was like, well, maybe this just happens, because I was handling risk well, and I kept on validating it by saying, well, I'm handling risk well, I'm fine.
Sure.
And so it made me turn a blind eye to where the real issue was.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I gradually started to I started to feel like I could not, like I couldn't get my hand on the steering wheel at all. It's as if I was just in the driver's seat like this now, and I couldn't really make anything work. And then I went back after a week of that. I don't know how it happened, but then I looked back for that week and I was like, oh my God, like I tried to review my trades and I was like, I didn't take pictures of anything.
Sure.
I didn't write anything down. And then I started to realize that like all I was doing is just like, instead of, I would tell myself, I would be like, you know what? You don't need to trade. And you've done it for a year straight. And so I was like, what's going on here? And it's because I've been open to the possibilities of being able to trade so much now, because I've gotten, I guess, more tools on my belt, for lack of a way of explaining it.
Yeah.
That, sure, I have more tools, but it doesn't mean I'm great at all the tools. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so wasn't accepting that. And instead, I was comparing myself to someone who's trading for 30 years.
Absolutely.
But not realizing that. But 30 years, and to expect that because I only place one trade a day and he places 10, that I need to be placing 10. And so I started to do that. And then I started to fall back. And then that's when I called you and I was like, you know what? I'm comparing myself way too much. And that came further on our call with you. And I kind of think out loud, right? And I told you that on the phone. I was like, I think out loud, and I appreciate you, letting me talk because it helps, right? And I was thinking out loud on our conversation, and I said, I discovered on that call that me comparing myself is something that has been with me since I was a kid. You know what I'm saying? And it's something that might have helped me throughout some part of my life. Of
course.
But it also doesn't help me. You know what I'm saying? Especially in trading. And I think what's interesting is I thought I handled that. You know what I'm saying? I thought I've kind of like handled that, but instead I've realized that I escaped from it by blocking out everyone for that year, right? I just ignored everyone. I didn't get on anything. I didn't talk to anybody. I would never talk to someone after I traded. I'd never ask them about their day because I didn't want to hear, because I knew deep down, and I can only say this now because I didn't know, right, is that I compared all the time.
Yeah.
And now because I'm finally admitting that and acknowledging that, it's helping me realize that what's the use? Like, there's no point. Like, I know I can say that because anyone listening could be like, oh my God, I may do that too. But I know I can say there's no point in comparing myself.
Sure.
But to say that and then realize it and truly believe it and then move forward and not do it is something in and of itself. Like, it's a whole different dilemma. And all I can say is, like, I told you after that conversation, like, I know what I need to do. I just need to stick to what I'm good at. And it's like we know. We've had a conversation about it. We know the way. It's just we're not walking the way, right? And so, like, I knew the way, and I knew I could do it. And so I was like, all right, I'll be fine. So I just, like, hung up with you. I said, I know what I need to do. Just stop comparing myself, focus. And guess what? I did not do that. I actually, the next week, I thought I did. I did better, but I just treaded water again. And I tracked everything this time. I did all my journaling, everything. And what I noticed, because then I had something to look back at, because it hit me even harder, is that this comparison thing is so deep that I need to work on me to grow further as a trader.
Sure.
Because I hit a level where, okay, I'm consistent. And this is what I try to tell people, like, consistency is one thing, but being able to grow your consistency is another. Right? Being able to grow, like, over time is a whole different, like, you can stop losing money and make money.
Yes.
But to stop losing money and make money and then take it to another level of making money is different.
Yes.
And I think that my biggest Achilles has been comparing. And when I went deeper into that, I started to notice that, and this is no fault to anyone, but when you grow up, I don't know if, and feel free to interrupt me, dude, by the way. Feel free to interrupt me. But when you grow up, or at least when I grew up, I have to say this in the nicest way, because I love my family to death. No one knows what they do to what they say, how it can impact in the 20 years or 10 years.
That's
they
right.
don't.
That's right.
They just know they're trying to do the best they can at that moment. And so, like, growing up, it was instilled that, like, I did martial arts for a long time, forever pretty much. And during that time, it was always like, oh, you did good, you could do better. Oh, you could be better than that if you do this. Those kind of things, which pushed me, which always made me want to do more.
Competition is just active comparison, so it has good attributes too.
Yes, and so I was always and then track, same way, like running a lot, and then I was like, I was usually like the fastest person, and then some guy came up out of nowhere and just blew me out and worked harder than me. But that's when it started to work against me, because I was comparing myself, and he was different attributes. This guy was like 6'8". He was just dumb tall, fast, but I would compare myself to him.
Totally.
And then it started to work against me in some instances where I would like, well, what's the point? Like, why do I need to work so hard? Like, and so, but then there was moments where it helped me tremendously.
Sure.
Like in my career when I was working a 9 to 5. I would compare myself, like, who's that guy? What is he doing?
Yeah. And
I'm going to do that and some. And it blew me up. I became the youngest partner in a Dallas firm, the first ever, at like 26 or whatever. I don't know the exact age, but it was young.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it helped me. And then, but in trading, it does not help me.
So yeah, and you get to a point in outside of trading, you get to a point when you're someone like that, which I am, when you ask yourself, am I suffering from this or benefiting from it? Like if you're alone at the top and you have all this, you don't sleep at night because of it, but you're at the top and you have a nice paycheck. Am I suffering from this or benefiting from it? One thing I noticed in your story is you mentioned two things that sort of inputted, it sounded like, to your rough streak, which was being gung-ho and comparing yourself to others. So what you'll notice, and we've talked about this part too before, both of those involve desire. Gung-ho-ness is a desire to perhaps go faster or accelerate or improve or do better or see results, some version of that. Comparing with others obviously is a desire to obtain something that they have. We very That's not true. We do compare ourselves with people that are below us in something, but that's
Yes,
not
that's
what
true.
that's not what you're talking about. You're saying comparing yourself with the 6'8" guy, not the
Yeah.
5'2" guy, right?
Right.
So both of them involve desire. That's why I think we have this catch-all of FOMO, right? All these other really horrible, disruptive things have these cool names like hostility or wrath. And we just sort of have this catch-all, FOMO. It's just a silly acronym. But when you look at what it actually is, it's an error in judgment involving desire that disrupts process. And so when you think of success in any walk of life, you have to find out, things that are true, like we've talked about. You have to build tenets around them. Tenets is the walk the way part. A tenet is what binds you to truth. The truth is the stove is hot. Or, excuse me, the truth is, the stove is hot and there is such a thing as pain. Those are the truths. The tenet is don't touch hot stoves needlessly. Simple tenet. It binds you to truths, right? FOMO is notable because it is the most piercing and disruptive thing that can get into, we call it black boxing on my team. Find out what's true, find out your edge, build tenets around it. So you're taking decisions out of your impulsive human head into your truths and tenets. FOMO is like this master key, an error in judgment involving desire, and it can just pop that thing up, just...
It's funny. That's the best visual I've heard in terms of that, and I'm still in that because it's great. That's a great
brother.
visual.
I'm sorry to
'Cause
break
that's
this
literally what it
horrible
is.
piece of news to your viewership, but you're gonna still be there. This is the human condition. This isn't some. There's no penthouse level of this elevator of misery. This is it.
And, it's like this whole comparison thing for me. It wasn't until like recently that now I can honestly say, and I'm thankful, so thankful that I can I wouldn't be here without God, and that's what I believe in, right? I don't, everyone has their own.
Sure.
But I honestly say because recently, I have finally been, I say finally, it was only 2 weeks, right? But it felt a while, right? The frustration, the buildup.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I made a decision, and it's like one of those decisions that I'm sure maybe you felt this, or maybe not. Maybe someone out there might have felt this. But when you know deep down what you need to do, but you don't do it. You know what I'm saying? It's like Alex, you need to take a step back and go get back to center.
Yeah.
Right? And what's going to help you with that?
Yeah.
You're going to have to downsize.
Yeah.
That's what I was telling. In my head, I could feel it in my gut.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to use the word ego. My ego at that time. And that moment, this moment was literally like a 10-minute shower. You know what I'm saying? It was in the shower.
Sure.
Because I was figuring out, it was the second week where after the week we talked,
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'm still where I'm at. And I was just in the shower and I meditate all the time. I bring that up because it helps. Meditation helps a ton for me.
Sure. No, it's conclusive in neuroscience. It's highly unlikely it's an Alex thing.
It's okay. So it definitely helps. And I know that, but some people may not believe it helps for them, but
I can make a little bibliography for the YouTube comments if
we should. But what's interesting is because even though I still go through things, I'm going through this right now, but I can recognize it sooner than when I used to when back in the day.
Yeah.
And because I was able to recognize, I was able to listen to what I would say is my true self, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And I already had the answer. Take a step back, focus on you. And acknowledge and figure out where these beliefs are coming from and change them, right? And so that's what I've been working on. And it's helped a ton.
Nice.
I've seen, the biggest thing I've seen is how I feel every day. And what I felt during those 2 weeks was stress every day.
Yeah.
Every day I was unhappy, right? It didn't matter if I made, lost, it didn't matter what the result was, I wasn't happy every day.
Yeah.
And now, every day, I feel way better because I've visualized what do I want to live like, right? I've re-asked myself that question, and we kind of talked about that on an old episode. But I talked about that, and I asked myself that question, and it was, I want to be happy doing what I do.
Sure.
And what that meant for me was having time to do other things I love to do as well. And so I created that time. And so now there'll be days where I only place 1 or place 0. And I am still working on it, where I don't compare myself. That's going to be a never ending. And that's something I've learned too. Like, it's nothing that goes away. It's something that I can always acknowledge now and recognize it when it comes up and choose not to believe that belief.
Yeah.
And change it over time.
Yeah, that's critical because you asked perhaps I had or hadn't had that same experience. I think that, like the thing we talked about before, is also universal. It's very rare in something that is really problematic that it's an especially only early in a real problem or challenge is it an understanding problem. It's almost always an execution problem. The heroin addict isn't having an understanding issue with what is, what's some problematic issues about his life. He's having an execution issue, right? He knows it's just stop it. How? Help me, right? It's the same thing for someone running into bad habits with sizing up. For me, my goodness, the litany list, but overconfidence and sizing up after I'll have 3 to 4, 6, 7 good trades, and it is almost like I then go on. I trade as if I specifically want to lose the money I just made. The bad habits come out so much in force, it's almost unrecognizable. It's not an understanding problem; it's an execution problem. I think that too is sort of most of the people listening to this that would be true for. Of course, there's always going to be exceptions, but that's another kind of that's the condition sort of these things. I think that's most people struggling with their trading. It isn't because they don't have access to some datum, some item of knowledge or understanding. Of course, day one, you have quite a bit of lack of access of that. 1 year in, when you're break even, it's probably not an understanding problem. Of course, in some small sense, it may be as well, but it's more action and execution in life.
Yep, absolutely, and that's, and I know there's a lot of people out there who they know, like they're like I know what I need to do. Like you said, like the example of the heroin addict, but they're not doing it.
Yeah.
And for me, what I'm learning for me that's helping me do that is, it's so funny when I talk about this because it's like, I don't know, everyone's journey is different, but for me, it's like, I thought, a year of consistency, okay, cool. Like, I handled all that, and it's like, that stuff, and I think we talk about this too, that stuff comes back at every level. Every time you try to grow, right? Because I was trying to grow. That's what I talked about. I said, absolutely. I got back from Paris. I visualized that like I'm doing well. And then I saw how much money's in Paris. To be honest, that's what I saw. I was like, holy moly.
Some version of it just happened to me the other day.
I was like, wow. I was like, because everyone's been in New York. A lot of people have been in New York. And New York is expensive. But Paris is a whole nother level in it. And I was just like, wow, like, I need to be doing more. Yeah. That's what I thought. And so I came back with that mindset and attacked the market with that mindset. And if you go back and look at all my trades for those past 2 weeks and compare it to the months before, they're literally unidentical. Totally. Unidentical. And I didn't see it at the time. At the time, I was, for some reason, this is this strategy. But then when I went back with a clearer head,
that Parisian,
and looked at it, I was like, that was not that strategy. Even though I wrote it down, I wrote that down to make me feel good to do it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
You should call this the Paris effect for the rest of your career. Whenever you just
the Paris effect.
Paris effect, baby.
Oh my god.
We talked about this in the real time, but and I want to get to how this yips streak resolved, if it did. We talked about it in real time. It goes back to desire. So trading is kind of unique. I think I thought about it. It's the only craft or profession where the desire has a negative relationship with the results. If you show up on a rugby pitch or to an airplane terminal, absolutely deliberately and urgently intent and desirous to be the best rugby player or pilot that has ever been, you probably won't be worse. I'm not saying you'll be 60% better, but you probably won't be a worse rugby player. If you show up that morning, fresh off a plane from Paris, Parisian wealth, I desire to be the best trader of all time. Red day. Facts. Red day.
That's so true. I don't know, it's frustrating that that's the case, because in all other walks of what you pursue in life, it's typically not.
Right.
And maybe it can be a longer down the road, down that path, in an other negative sense, but you don't feel it like you feel it in trading because it's instant. It's like you go down, like if it
right.
takes 20 years to actually feel the effects, it takes 1 second to feel it in trading.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying?
And there's another nuance there, which is someone like Stevie Cohen or something probably does and probably has since the beginning of his career. We need to always talk about the nuance of things. Nothing is some categorical law. Someone like Stevie Cohen at the upper echelons of success probably has had a feeling of, I want to be the best trader, I want to be famous, I want to be the best trader of all time. And he's probably had that since very on in his trading career, but he shows up to the workday with the tranquility of process and not that desire pounding in his ears. That is very likely the distinction.
That is. Because I know whenever I always preach that, and you see on the intro of every episode, is process over profits. And I preach that for me. You know what I'm saying? I do that for me because I need to remind myself all the time. And usually that's what's helped me, but I fell off. I'm human. You know, I make, and that's the other thing. Like during that period, everything came back that I had to work on before I had that year of consistency. Before I had that year, all my habits came back for those 2 weeks. The habits of not being okay with mistakes, being upset at myself, beating myself up.
Toxic
all of
comparison.
that came back. Yeah. And the root of it came from comparison. And I didn't know that until further conversation with you and then also meditation and just working through it. And then I finally figured out it's like realizing that that's the root and has been the root for a long time for me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say that because now I know what it is, and now I can start, and that's what I'm doing. I'm working towards understanding it more and building new beliefs to make myself pursue, differently. And I think Trading the Zone, Mark Douglas, may he rest in peace, love that guy. Yeah. He talks about beliefs a lot, and he talks about how we view things through our own beliefs and how they're so concrete that if we get bit by a dog, for this example, as a young kid. And you get two kids, kid A and kid B see a dog, and kid A gets bit by a dog. Kid B gets loved by the dog. As they grow up, one's just going to fear dogs their entire life, while the other one's just going to love them until a dog bites him. And he's not going to go, dogs are evil, they're going to always bite me. He's going to go, no, just maybe a couple of dogs every once in a while might bite me. Yeah. Whereas the other one will always see every dog. Yeah, so that's right. Vicious.
So we think of the mind as being this organ of reason into which emotion and impulse and beliefs are sometimes inserted, obviously sometimes disruptively. The mind is actually a big organ of emotion, impulse, and beliefs into which very rarely, only sometimes, is reason inserted, is rationality inserted. When you flip that switch a little bit, you start to you just start to understand and build a new you, kind of.
Yeah, and I think that's really what I'm working on, just building a new version of myself. And it's so weird to explain that or talk about it, but it's like...
It's not weird because nature engineered you based on 3,000 or whatever, very long time of inputs. It engineered you for something you don't have to do anymore. It engineered you to want to be someone to want to be physiologically and biologically and cognitively someone you, Alex, and Tim, do not want to be. We don't need to be. There's no woolly mammoths anymore.
Yeah, understand. And what would you say is there anything... Because I've been saying a lot, and I just want to know, if someone else feels something like me, or you can just talk to me, but maybe someone else is feeling something similar, right? What would you say? Is there anything I should be looking at or suggest? Not I should, but more so, I would maybe be open to looking at or looking into, or I think offsite we were talking about a book or something like that. But anything like that may help someone else in a different way. Maybe they don't understand my message or what I'm trying to convey.
You mean like a resource?
A resource. Or even just, hey, maybe try doing this if you're going through this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a little hard to speak because I truly believe, and the conversation is a great example of this, is that your rough patch, Mr. Viewer, is probably pretty specific. So I don't really have a buckshot shotgun. I mean, I'm a huge fan of meditation. As a student of neuroscience, I'm a wretchedly undisciplined meditator. I perhaps have meditated twice in this wonderful year. So I'm a hypocritical student of neuroscience, so thus a fan of meditation. So meditate. Exercise is obviously huge. A balanced life that isn't. So yeah, I guess and I want to hear how your rough streak ended, if it did, or fast forward to me since. But
sure.
one thing for me is like purpose and purpose and identity. So one thing, and I think this helps a lot with getting over rough streaks as well. But you have to sort of identify into being a professional trader. This is the kind of thing that can happen a lot with getting over revenge trades or bad habits. If you sort of just, and you can kind of brute force it. I identify into the kind of trader who takes a loss with a calm sense of kind of just sort of upbeat serenity, if you will. Just it never going to feel happy, but just you're sort of just, okay, let's go to the next 10 trades that make this a profitable craft for me. I think a huge part of that is sort of identifying into that professional trader, and it's also important to, and I'm speaking of anyone that will ever hear this, I am the audience. I am the one that most needs to hear it, even to this day, years of working on it. You have to identify into something bigger than trading, because you're not going to be, if your whole life is trading, your understanding and your emotional relationship to a loss, particularly an outsized one, is now unacceptable. It's problematic. So, I feel like I don't know you that well, but I feel like you do a really good job into identifying into a whole human life. A family man, a content creator, certainly a trader who's been open and earnest about his journey and the flaws that we all have. I have done maybe a less powerful job. I certainly have a life outside of trading that I enjoy and isn't. I don't live behind a Walmart or something and then show up to the trading, but I have a lot to improve. So I do a good job, I think, of identifying into being a professional trader. I need to improve identifying into a whole human life to where trading is great on the day that it sucked. I have the rest of the portfolio of a human life to get into. So where to take after that second week, kind of extended the first week's frustrations, to the extent you're comfortable talking about it. Where have you been since with that? Yeah.
Right now, this is now the week after that second week.
Oh, okay. So our conversation is that recent.
Yeah. So now what I would say right now, I feel way better. And I hate to say this. How do I explain this without? It was the word good and bad are the wrong words for me now, because good and bad associate that things are something, whereas things are just what they are. They just happen. You know what I'm saying? And what happened is it ended up being a positive day, a positive week.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean it was I don't want to use, because I'm trying to change how I use the words good and bad.
Sure.
Because they're so black and white. Whereas trading's not that way,
sure.
And things just happen, and they are, especially when there's process and probabilities. So it was a positive week, and it was much better than the last 2 weeks in terms of what I'm working on, and trading itself and me. And just to give you a change on what I do, like back then, those first 2 weeks that I was going through, I was there all day, trading all day. That's it. And maybe I didn't trade all day, but I was there all day.
Nice.
And then after that, now I wake up. I always go to the gym, but I wake up at 4 o'clock.
Very nice.
Go to the gym at 5 o'clock. 4:30 is when I wake up. Go to the gym at 5. Be back at 6. Have coffee or breakfast with my wife till 7. And then I go in my office, meditate for 20 minutes, and then I open up the platform at 7:30. I'm Central Time. And then from there, I start to prep, look at everything for about, I like an hour, right? And then after I prep, if I don't see anything, while I'm prepping, I'm telling myself I'm not trading today. And I'm just not going to trade today. And I just prep everything, and then I don't see anything, or maybe I do. The day after that morning open, the hour and a half, if I don't see anything, I walk away. And now I have something to do. I've made a plan. I said I'm going to learn a language. I started to study a language.
Which
as
one?
Soon as I walk away, it's funny. I need to learn Spanish. So I'm going to get Spanish down because I want to learn French. And I was like, if I'm going to learn French, I want to learn Spanish first. And Spanish should not be, I am getting better at it over time. I understand a lot, but speaking has been something I need to work on.
Yeah.
So I've been working on that. And I want to get back into reading actual books instead of listening to books. That's just a personal thing. And so I bought, in my office, I have like a nice chair. So I just sit down, open my book. I'll read for a minimum. I say it. I put 10 minutes on. I just do that so in my brain, I tell myself, oh, you can do 10 minutes. But I'll read much longer usually. I'll just let it go out, like, okay, and I'll just keep reading because I'll get consumed.
Yeah.
And then I'll either study a little bit of Spanish, have some lunch, and I'll just make myself do something else or lay down. This is different now, and just lay there and be with my dog, play around or play fetch, and I'm in the moment. I've been really focused on doing things that makes me happy, and what I've noticed is the results and everything is changing again. Like it's becoming more present with my wife, more present with me, and being able to recognize things. Now, do I make mistakes? Of course.
Yeah.
But that's the difference too. Like when I make a mistake, like I made a mistake last week in trading, and when I recognized the mistake, I immediately got out of the trade rather than waiting and telling myself, oh, you got in this. I used to do this. I used to be like, oh, you got in this trade with a plan, even though that trade from the beginning wasn't really a good setup plan. You're going to have to hold till the plan is done.
Okay.
Now, I got into something last week, and I was like, this is not a good trade. I just got out of it. And I was like, this is what it is. It's going to happen. And I was accepting of that. And because I asked myself the question, because for a moment, it was like what I've learned is through studying, like, when I say study, I hired life coaches, right, over time. And I was able to study a lot of these programs about self and learning more about self. So I just went back to those programs. And I learned that for me, emotions first, like body reactions first, and then thoughts, and then your mind conveys those thoughts and tells you something.
Yeah.
And so I have learned the trigger, and my trigger for me is like either I'll feel something like right here, like a little shortness of breath, or a little heat right here. And when I feel that, I've learned to acknowledge what that is, and I say relearn that. I've relearned to acknowledge what that is and tell myself and ask myself those questions we talked about earlier, like, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling a little upset? Is it because I'm taking a loss? Is it because I made a mistake? And then I ask myself, well, why would I be upset about that?
Yeah.
And then I get to the belief. And then I ask myself, is this true?
Yeah.
Is this a true belief? Like, is this true for me? And it's not. So I change and tell myself, no, what's true for me is I'm a professional trader, and mistakes happen. You're going to take losses sometimes. You're going to take wins sometimes. It's just part of trading.
Yeah.
And then it recenters me, and that's when I'm able to pull that trigger and just get out of it for no reason. And then I have to handle the next thing that comes up.
Yeah.
Is because then the next thing that pops up immediately, because I handled that, got out, feel good. But then I'm like watching it, and then I can feel it come back and say, well, what if it's going to work?
Yeah.
And then I just go through that process
This
again.
is a huge thing in our
through that process
in our
again.
work.
And
We
then,
call this turning the corner.
Then it works,
It's huge.
and that right there has made me feel. The only word that comes to mind is not control, but I'm more aware of me. Is the words that I can use, and I'm feel good about what I'm working on.
Sure.
And so that's it.
You asked earlier if you had a recommendation to someone watching it, man. I mean, without meaning to flatter you, you are leading a balanced and examined life. You're picking at the edges of the broken things, trying to understand them, take them apart a little bit, put them back together in a more fruitful way. That's the stuff that makes life fun, but it's also definitively the stuff that makes life accelerate. And so I would all of that sounded really, really good to me. Knowing we're not promised anything in this life, I can't promise you anything, but you are keep approaching these things in that way, and you are promised a good chance, the chance to be happy and well fulfilled in trading and outside of trading, and that's all we can really.
That's all we can hope for. Yeah, that's all we can do. So look, man, I appreciate you so much being here and just talk with me through this. It means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And anyone, if you get any type of value from any of this, just do us a favor, because we work really hard on this kind of content. You know how hard we work on trying to put something together.
Yes,
so
indeed.
just hit that like button and share with another friend, because someone might be feeling something similar. And thanks again.